Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Izukanji Kashiwa here. But since we're all friends, you can call me Iz. If you're new here, I talk movies, series, gaming, music, basically everything entertainment. And on days like today, I like to throw a little positivity back into the world. If that can even help one person have a better day or just have a different approach to the week, then my job here is basically done. Alright? Okay, let's get into it. So one of the books I make it a point to read at least a few times a year is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And recently I was listening to the audiobook on my way to work and I was stuck on this part where the kid asked the dad for something and the dad said, the poor dad said, we cannot afford that. The kid asked for the same thing from the rich dad and the rich dad said to himself, how can I afford that? That seemingly simple concept, it's something I've been applying to my life for quite a long period of time. And the distinction, when you realize the distinction that this seemingly simple thing has, where one person looks at the same thing and says, I cannot afford this. And the different person looks at the exact same thing and instead of reaching a dead conclusion saying, there's no way I can afford this, he instead asks himself the question, how can I afford this? Now, if you get to a point where you can understand this, things will be very simple for you to acquire. So, I am by no means a business guru. I'm just trying to share things that I've applied before I even read the book. I unknowingly was applying this principle to my life, and it worked. And as we go on, I'm going to give you practical examples of how this worked for me. I'm also going to highlight a few things that you need to have in place to successfully implement this into your life. What I'm trying to explain to you is just life experiences that can be applied to business. And I think with all of the great books that have been written about business, they're basically just life lessons. When you look at all the books, most of my favorite books that have got great business lessons. When you look at The Richest Man in Babylon, The Alchemist, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, these aren't business books per se. These, from my understanding, are life lessons that can be applied to business. So I also just want to share my life lessons that you can apply to business, that I've applied to small things that you can magnify and apply to even larger things to get the results that you want. And in this specific video, to buy what you want, okay? To change your approach to life from I cannot afford it to how can I afford it. And if you haven't read this Robert Kiyosaki book, you should. Not purely as a business book, but purely just as a life book. It will help you just in life in general. And if you can apply these life lessons to business, it will help your business definitely. First, we're going to look at the things that you should put in place if you want to acquire something. The first thing you should look at is your income. How much money do you make? How frequently do you make that amount? By this, I mean, how much money do you make daily? If your source of income is a cash business, you make money every day. Or if you are, say, in employment and you get paid every week or every month, that's important. So figure out first how much money you make and how frequently you make it. If you make X amount of money in Y period of time, you need to have that in place first. For illustration purposes, I'm going to say you are able to save every month 500 kwacha, okay? If you are able to save 500 kwacha, that's after you've paid yourself. First, you've cleared all your financial obligation after paying yourself. That's the basic principle in The Richest Man in Babylon. Before you do anything else, pay yourself 10%. A whole different video. But basically what I'm saying is how much money are you left with to spend after you've met all your financial obligations at the end of the period that you make some money. So if your income comes in every week, after you make your weekly income and you make your financial obligations for that week, how much money do you have left? That's the figure you should have in your head right now. That's the figure I'll keep referring to. And for illustration purposes, that figure will be 500 kwacha, okay? So you make 10,000 kwacha after you pay yourself the 10%, you pay your bills, whatever it is that you owe for that month, whatever obligation you have financially for that period, for that month, for that week, for that day, however your money comes in. After you meet all those financial obligations, the figure that's left, that's what you should look at first. The second thing you should consider is what do you need to sacrifice? What in your life can you put on hold or permanently take out of your life to create space to save more money? Do you need that extra pair of shoes that month? Do you need that extra shirt? Do you need that extra suit? Do you need that extra dinner out that month? If you don't, and you can sacrifice it, you put all those things together. What nights can you stay in? What weekends can you go out and chill? Can you take the bus on some days so that you save on gas? Or if you use a taxi to go to work or use a Remember to go to work, can you sacrifice that Remember for a bus? If you pay 100 kwacha to get to your job, can you pay 20 kwacha to get on the bus? Okay? So you need to tabulate all that and figure out what you can sacrifice for that period to save extra money. That's the second thing. So when you have that in place, now comes in the part where you have to figure out how you can afford that thing. So if say the thing costs you 5,000 kwacha, and after the period and the sacrifice you can save 500 kwacha dedicated to that specific project. What you now have to do is you need to figure out how to break that big amount of the thing you want to acquire into manageable amounts, which for explanation purposes I'm using 500 kwacha. So if you're buying something that costs you 5,000 kwacha, you figure out how you can break that 5,000 kwacha down to 500 kwacha payments. Open a separate bank account and deposit this 500 kwacha every period, which is every period you earn. If you earn daily, if you earn weekly, you earn monthly. So for every period that you are able to save that 500 kwacha, you deposit the money into that bank account per period. Preferably a fixed deposit account which you don't have easy access to. I don't have any business qualification to tell you this from that standpoint, but I can tell you this from my own personal experience. And I can give you a few practical examples. There was a point in my life where I wanted to buy shoes, okay? Not one pair of shoes, not 5, not 10 pair of shoes. I wanted to buy shoes. And I figured out how much did I need to buy this number of pair of shoes. So say I figured out this was 10x, all right? That's how much it would cost for me to purchase that obscene amount of shoes. So then the second thing is I needed to figure out what I needed to sacrifice in my life for me to save more so that it would reduce the period I would need to save to buy those shoes. So for a year plus, maybe even 2 years, I wore slides. I wore slippers and sweats every day. I didn't buy new clothes, I didn't buy new shoes. And I saved that money consistently. And my friends would ask, hey, Izzy, you make a decent amount of money. We know that. So once you're getting this, once you're buying that, but in my head, I knew what I wanted to get and my eye was on the ball. I knew what I wanted to acquire at the end of the day. And I know it didn't make sense to the people around me. Say, this guy is making a decent amount of money. Why is he always in sweats and slides? But it made sense to me. You know, like Nietzsche said, to those that couldn't hear the music, they thought that people dancing were crazy because they couldn't hear the music. So I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I needed to sacrifice. I knew what I needed to save every week towards that 10x that was going to get me those pairs of shoes. And I bought those shoes. I don't even know when next I'll need a pair of shoes. But I followed that basic principle before I even read the Robert Kiyosaki book. Before I even had that principle in my head, I knew that this is what I needed to sacrifice. And I needed to consider my income. I needed to consider how frequently I made that X. And I needed to know that I needed to save this X 10 times to get to 10X so that I can afford this pair of shoes. Same thing happened before I ever got a car. My friends would say, hey, you can afford to get in a cab every day from work. Why do you use a bus? And I'm sure it was weird to them. Why is this guy getting on a bus every day, walking to the bus stop, waiting for a bus to get full, and then going home? There's a million stops before you get to your stop. And then even when you get to your stop, you have to walk from the stop to your home. Why aren't you getting a cab? And I'm like, well, it's my thing. I prefer it. But in my head, I had calculated how many times I needed to take the bus to save X amount and how much money I had coming in to add to what I was sacrificing. Instead of a cab, I use a bus. Put that together, I was sacrificing X. X times a certain period will get me to 10X. 10X will get me a car, which eventually it did. And getting on a bus, I don't know if it's 2 years, paid off for me. That worked, all right? Without even thinking about it, without even knowing what I was doing in that moment, I was applying the same principle. Instead of saying I cannot afford it, I was asking myself the question, how can I afford it? Another incident. This is a funny one, but I'm going to tell you guys. So I went on a date. That was before I didn't have a car, and I did not really live in the best of neighborhoods. This girl picked me up from home in her car. Yeah, that was something. We went for dinner. After that, we went out. It was a fun night. We had fun. I had fun. She had fun. And when dropping me off, she asked me something that was very profound in the moment. She asked me, hey, we went out. We went to nice places for dinner. After that, we went to nice places to hang out. So you clearly can afford to live in a decent neighborhood, if not a great neighborhood. Why are you living here? And the part of me felt that because I got a little, just my ego got bruised a little bit. But then I couldn't explain the whole thing, so I just said this is what I can afford for now. But that one almost had me going off trail. But thank goodness I stuck to my guns and stayed in that neighborhood for at least another year after that incident. And after that, I moved to an apartment that I wanted to move to, and I could afford to get everything that I needed in that apartment. But that only worked because I had a plan and I stuck to that plan. I asked myself, what apartment do I want to stay in? I saw that. And then I asked myself, what would it take for me to live here? I'd have to sacrifice a few years staying in a not so decent neighborhood. And I would have to sacrifice X amount of money every week. That's what it was going to take for me. So the whole point of this video is how you can acquire things is your attitude towards the thing you want to buy, the thing you want to acquire. The poor dad looked at the thing he wanted to buy and instantly sold himself short. He said, I could not afford this. Son, we cannot afford this. The rich dad sat, looked at the thing, and asked himself, how can I afford this? Just that difference in perspective made the difference. Even in your life, in your business, that difference between you saying, I cannot, and you asking yourself, how can I? Instead, changes the whole thing. So, from now on, instead of selling yourself short and saying you cannot afford it, ask yourself how you can afford it. No matter how big it is, break it down to X. Break it down to the amount of money that you can save every day if you earn money every day, every week, if you earn money every week, every month, if you earn money every week, every month. Figure out how you can afford it. Break it down to manageable chunks. You've heard people say, if you have faith, you can move a mountain. You have to break it down into rocks that you can carry. That's how you move a mountain. Yeah, with faith you can move mountains, but you have to break down that mountain to rocks that you can carry. If it costs 100 grand, break it down to 10. How long can it take you to get to 10? Break that down to 1,000. How long can it take you to make 1,000? Break that down to 100 questions. How long can it take you to make 100? Break that down to 10. Break it down until it reaches a manageable amount. It can be done. Alright, that's it for me. You guys have yourself a wonderful week. And as always, dare to be great. See what happens. Peace.